I wonder what we're going to cover in today's education news. One word: Ofsted grades for schools to be scrapped immediately. Yesterday I made a video talking about how we should be a little bit more optimistic as a profession going into this academic year. So waking up to reading this news is certainly helping that optimism. So say goodbye to those words, take those banners down. They are going to be no longer. Now, I've been making videos on social media since 2012. I think this is the first time I've ever agreed with a statement from the DfE, where they are saying about single phrase grades, it fails to provide a fair and accurate assessment of overall school performance across a range of areas and are only supported by a minority of parents, and I'd say even fewer teachers. Now, this change follows the tragic death of Ruth Perry in January 2023 when she was waiting the publication of an Ofsted report where her school had been deemed inadequate after inspectors raised safeguarding concerns. The inquest later heard that these concerns did not justify that rating and sort of exposed how toxic and inconsistent the inspection process can be. The inquest then found the Ofsted inspection had contributed to Ruth's death and raised questions about the pressures of inspections on head teachers. That this happened in January 2023 and it's over a year and a half later for that change to happen, whilst it is definitely welcome, is frustrating. It's frustrating for me. I can only imagine what it must be like for Ruth's friends, family. But the fact that we are starting to turn a corner with this is definitely a step in the right direction. But let's not forget what a damning indictment it is of the previous leadership of Ofsted, Amanda Spielman, who defended it all, plus the government, the previous government, the Tories, who continued and still continue today to justify those toxic one-word judgments. And I just have to, again, give a shout out to Julia, Ruth's sister, who I just have so much respect and admiration for continuing to speak out and try and hold those to account. And I'm really excited because I'm hopefully going to be interviewing Julia very soon. So with those toxic one-word gradings going, what's it going to be replaced with? Well, there's talk of these report cards coming in next September, so this time next year, and they will cover quality of education, behaviour and attitudes, personal development, leadership and management. There is also talk it's going to include provision for children with SEND needs. Telegraph understands the government is also exploring plans for pupil absence to be assessed and part of Ofsted inspections. This is something that if you are going to do, schools need a lot more funding to help improve that. We know the issue with pupil absence, but there's so little schools can actually do to change that without the necessary support and funding. It's important to note that this will only apply to state schools for now. So some private schools, colleges, early years and teacher training, it's not going to change yet. Although private schools inspected by ISI have already ditched those grades. These report cards are due to start in September 2025. There is going to be a interim sort of stopgap until then. The government said the report cards will give parents a full and comprehensive assessment of how schools are performing and ensure that inspections are more effective in driving improvement, but they need to come up with a plan. Content will be developed over the coming months, so they're taking the time with that to make sure it works for everyone. Schools will still face intervention. Ofsted will still identify schools that would have been seen or rated inadequate and tell the government about them, but they just won't publish a headline grade for them. Hosting schools will get support now instead. So when a school gets 2 or more consecutive requires improvement, government intervention is triggered. Where the policy is changing, the new government is calling them struggling, and instead of facing academisation or rebrokering, they will get targeted support from a high-performing school, which sounds like it's combating that high-stakes accountability that those one-word gradings could lead to people losing their jobs. And early next year, those schools will also get support from these new regional improvement teams which Labour pledged to set up in its manifesto. And there were more changes about how the government intervene with schools, and they're going to look at how they're going to base that on these report cards, but they're not saying more about that now. I'd love to know your thoughts. I think this is definitely a step in the right direction, a real positive move. It's not going to be a solution to all these issues. So many more reforms need to happen. But for years I've said, whether it's directly or indirectly, Ofsted are one of the main reasons why workload's gone through the roof exponentially for teachers. Over 40,000 teachers have left the profession for the second year running. That recruitment and retention crisis, Ofsted are to blame for a lot of that. So getting rid of these gradings is definitely a step in the right direction, but not. There's so many more things that need to happen. The inspection framework has meant our workload's gone through the roof exponentially. And yet Ofsted still have the audacity to come into a school and ask about wellbeing and workload when they're the main reason it's gone through the roof. And you may remember that Ofsted did a big listen consultation. They are due to publish their findings this week, so I'm sure I'll do a follow-up video. Within it, though, they say that only 29% of teachers and 38% of parents support single-word judgments. Who are those 29%, by the way? Who are they? They're clearly those schools who got the lucky roll of the dice, a nice inspector who gave them a good grade, and they're now panicking, thinking, oh, we're going to have to take all the banners down. But you've got to put it into perspective. Those one-word gradings didn't improve education. They didn't raise standards. It was toxic. It had a negative impact on so many educators, made so many educators leave the profession. So getting rid of them is definitely a step in the right direction. Let's see what other changes are now to follow.